Hey everyone. Yeah, I'm gonna do this video real quickly before I get ready to go and get in the shower and get myself ready for work tonight. Because even though it's 4 hours, that 4 hours could feel like forever. It could be slow. I don't know. But anyway, I want to talk about something that it's kind of an interesting thing to me. It's something that I've been wanting to talk. Something I want to talk about. You know, as a lot of you know, I've been a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog since initially the beginning, since about 1991. And that's basically now going to be 24 years. It'll be 24 years. And, or 25, depending on how you look at it. And quite honestly, it's surprising how, to me as a fan, it's really surprising of how big the franchise has gotten, how big the fan base primarily has gotten, and that because of said fan base, which I'm proud to be part of, the franchise has lasted as long as it has, even through its ups and downs. And then but then of course we get to one of the biggest extensions for the franchise, one of the biggest reasons, if not one of the main important reasons this franchise still survives to this day, in my opinion, and that is the comic books by Archie Comics. Now, for years, there have been a variety of groups on DeviantArt, message boards, wherever, that have given their opinions and have basically said how they feel about the direction of the comic itself. And some have praised it as being one of the best comic adaptations of a video game or any franchise ever, seeing as though it's one of the longest ones in history. And others have panned it because sometimes the stories or the characters didn't make sense, or the way characters were portrayed, to the point that they would wish said character would just vanish. And then, of course, you get to the people that write the stories. Sometimes people will praise these people as writing some of the best stories they've ever read, and some will pan them as being some of the worst writers in history, if not one of the worst hacks in history. And then, of course, you get to the companies involved. Archie Comics, Sega of America, SOA, and Sega of Japan, SOJ. And sometimes you'll have people praising every one of them, saying, hey, this is one of the best things you've done. And sometimes you'll have them panning and pooning them by saying this is one of the worst things you've done, or basically telling one or the other to keep their nose out of the business of said comic and let it be. Which brings me, of course, to what's been going on at a group called Save Archie Sonic. Now, I'm proud to be part of this because I can understand that, you know, a lot of fans want the comic to go back to what it was, or at least go back to a format that everybody can enjoy. Now, some people might say, well, the reason they did said soft reboot, said soft retcon back last year, or a little over a year ago, was because the original timeline was so discombobulated, if you will, so convoluted, that nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew what story was being focused on, what was this, what was that. Nobody knew. So when you have something like that, of course, you're going to have something that says, you're going to have writers and the staff and the company say, okay, enough's enough, enough confusion, enough convoluting. It's time to clean this mess up, and we're going to make it more smoother and simpler for the readers. It's something very similar to what Marvel is doing. Marvel is basically, as some people put it, taking the New 52 route by taking two of the main universes that have different stories and continuities taking place on them, and during the summer, merging them together into one simple continuity that reboots the entire franchise, softly reboots, if not entirely reboots, and retcons the entire franchise, to make it easier and simpler for people to follow the characters and the stories. Now, when we get to Archie Comics, though, it's an entirely different story because yes, part of that soft retcon, soft reboot that we went through with the comic was to make things simpler and easier, but it was also due to the fact that behind the scenes, a former writer was at odds and ends with Archie Comics, and being at odds and ends behind the scenes with Archie Comics led to Sega being brought into the fold, and thus what happened because of this, Archie Comics, depending on how you look at it, removed certain elements, certain story elements, certain characters away from the book, and thus we got what we have now. And not a lot of fans are happy about that. A lot of fans are pissed off at the fact that this happened. So what have these fans done? These fans, who I'm friends with, and I do have a lot of respect for, or admire their moxie and courage to do this. A lot of these fans are basically coming out and through letters, petitions, they're doing whatever it takes, which I admire and I respect them for, to try to get the comic back to what it was in some way, or at least bring the characters that were taken out to bring them back. Some fans are doing petitions to Ken Penders. Who is the writer that was part of that whole situation behind the scenes with Archie. They're writing to Ken Penders, petitioning Ken Penders. They're writing and petitioning to Archie Comics, to Sega. They're doing all of this. They're trying to basically get them to say, look, you need to bring these characters back. You need to reestablish certain story elements because that's what made the comic good. There are certain things like, Fiona Fox's heel turn back in 172. Part of the petition and writing is to get her to go back to being good. Now some might say that the only reason people are doing this is because they want what they want back. Like with Fiona Fox, some might say that the only reason they want Fiona Fox back and have her turn good is so they could ship Tails Fiona. And that could be understandable because, yeah, both are foxes, and here's the dream girl that, Tails wants to be with, and yet he can't now. But the thing is here, there are certain ways to dealing with it. Now, petitions and writing letters, that's fine and everything. But when I read this one journal on DeviantArt, it got me to want to do this video. You see, like I said, petitions and writing letters, that's good because those do work. You go to change.org and petitions, and sometimes those work. Sometimes that will get the message out. And you'll probably get some kind of hint or something that, okay, they're listening. But then you get this journal here where somebody is saying, hey, what we need to do is we still need to accomplish our goal. We need to do something that will definitely send a message. And that message, of course, is to get the comic back to what it was, or the semi back to what it was. And when I read here, I look at it like this. There are ways of doing this. Like I said, petitions and writing letters is one way, and more effective at times. Emails are effective. Faxes at times are more effective. On-screen video is more effective. But when you say you're going to try to get a person or two to be flown out to where Archie Comics is in Memory, New York, have them maybe with a chain, tie them to whatever, a chain, which would indicate, in my opinion, oh, we're going to tie ourselves to this, which it didn't say, but still. Sometimes that's not always the best idea. Yeah, you can go out there and be a one-person protest or a two-person protest and all that. And sometimes protests work and they don't work. But the thing is, when I read this, To me, if you really want to take the fight to anybody, you really want to petition and write video and fax and email anybody and explain why things need to be restored, don't go entirely on Archie Comics about it, because they're just the person that licenses the book. If you're going to talk to anybody, talk to SOA, Sega of America, and talk to SOJ, Sega of Japan. And if you need somebody that can translate Japanese, find that person, ask them if they can do that, or at least find a way to type up what you want and then translate it in Japanese, send it to Japan, send it to Sega of America, and say, hey, look, this is what, and explain why. Say, look, we understand that behind the scenes you had a situation with one of the former writers, but that shouldn't mean you should take away these characters, or at least these other characters that we loved, we were fans of. You shouldn't take away these certain story elements that we were fans of, that we loved. You need to bring them back. You need to find a way to bring them back, reestablish them. Heck, go and rename them if you have to. Rename them by different names. Give them a slightly different design, but affirm to us in some ways that this is a certain character from the previous continuity. Or do something like that. At least explain the situation to them directly, to those responsible, so they can know, okay. And of course, go to someone like Ken Penders and say, look, Ken, we understand why you did this, but you have to understand, and just tell him straight out, his idea may not work because fans are not going to be used to seeing the characters like that they're used to seeing them mostly in Sonic comics. Just straight up tell him that. Explain to him the situation. But don't say, in a sense, that, we should fly somebody or some people out there and videotape or video film a protest, or someone chained to a pole or something like that. Not saying, again, that's what it said, but it sounded like it indicated it. And saying, hey, we want this. It doesn't work that way. The best way I look at it is like this. I believe the petitions, the letters, the faxing, the videos, they're eventually going to work. They're eventually going to work, because you can't just eventually going to work. And they're going to work by not just sending them to Archie Comics. And Louis the Hedgehog, I want you to listen very, very well. Not just sending them to Archie Comics, but you got to send a copy of those letters straight to Sega of America, and to Sega of Japan. Translate them into Japanese if you have to find a way to do that. But do it so that at least your word not just goes straight to Archie, but it goes to all three parties, so they can understand, okay, this is what needs to be done. Alright? And who knows? Maybe in a sense this soft retcon reboot may pay off in the end. We have no idea what the Sonic movie is going to be like that's coming to theaters by Sony. But what's going to happen if a trailer shows up and you see the silhouettes of not just Sonic, but of Sally, Bunny, Rotor, Tails, Antoine? What are you going to do then? Of Amy Rose. What are you going to do then? You see, that's just the thing. We don't know what's really going on here. So, to me though, and my advice as a long-term fan is, if you want to send word, if you want to get the word out, you want to get people's attention, then do it by directing it towards the three groups, the three entities that need to be directed at. Archie Comics, Sega of America, and Sega of Japan. That's what you need to do, and you need to explain in a way that makes them realize they need to fix things, in your opinion. So, that's all I'm going to say. Let me know what you guys think down below. I'll talk to you later.